don't take that as a message that I don't belong here or I shouldn't be here because it doesn't feel familiar. Be ready to be a little bit uncomfortable.
Hi, Oceanside Perspective community. My name is Sarai Garcia, and today I'm joined with a very, very special guest who I'm very excited to introduce, Julie Matsumoto, who is our new senior legal advisor on our advisory board. Julie, do you want to do a short introduction about yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me here. It's fantastic. I am the head of legal for the supply chain organization at Juniper Networks.
That's awesome. So let's go into kind of your story. Can you share a bit about the journey leading up to your current role as head of legal for supply chain and what kind of sparked your interest in the legal field, particularly in technology?
Sure. Thanks for asking. And by the way, everything I say will be my personal opinions and not speaking on behalf of my employer.
Of course.
Well, it's interesting. I became interested in the legal profession because I was doing work at a nonprofit, working with a lot of lawyers. And I thought what they do really helps resolve problems. And I was interested in serving the community in some way, and I didn't know exactly how, but I understood legal profession would be one way of doing that. So I pursued law. And as I became closer to working in the profession, I realized that the entry-level roles available for lawyers were not roles that I was very interested in. So I kind of pivoted and started to pursue an interest in sort of a creative side combined with law. So I was looking at fashion licensing and entertainment licensing, which combined both a creative side with my legal background.
Interesting.
And I really enjoyed that. It was so much fun, but to do even more of that required me to move geographically to a completely different part of the country.
Right.
And I really wasn't interested in doing that. I realized that was a really important thing to me to stay where I was. Living in the heart of Silicon Valley, it was a natural transition to start doing technology licensing, which ended up being probably a lot more interesting to me and my particular brain because I got to learn about so many different kinds of technologies. And I've got to constantly learn about new industries, new businesses, and continue to develop my legal skills. So it kind of happened by accident that I realized I was interested in technology, and I love it because there's always something new happening, and you get to be a student all the time. You get to learn all the time, and it's kind of like magic as we develop new technologies that have capabilities that never existed before.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome, and it's kind of indicative that the journey that you're following right now just happened to be a path that you didn't know that you were on. And that's, I think, a lot of the experience of a lot of people in this field and a lot of fields. They didn't know what they wanted to do. And this is kind of what they ended up on. And it's fate. It really is fate. Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned being in a nonprofit and starting as a nonprofit, your journey, because as we are, Oceanside Perspective is also a nonprofit, and you are a senior legal advisor for Oceanside Perspective now. Being a lawyer and obviously head of legal, your job is always about advising, though. Always an advisor. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I think that's one of the things that I really enjoy about being a lawyer is that you get to use your background and legal skills that you've developed through education and work, but also really understand the objectives of your client and help them achieve what they're trying to achieve. So whether it's helping a company and a set of engineers create something new or a new business model, or helping a nonprofit achieve its objectives, and really standing in the shoes of that organization and understanding how they're trying to achieve their objectives, who they're trying to reach, that part I really enjoy. So you get to combine being, whatever, a business person, an entrepreneur, a nonprofit, serving people, and also rely on the background knowledge that I have as a lawyer.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle. You're putting together a puzzle.
Thanks. Yes, absolutely. Sometimes trying to figure out how to fit what you're trying to achieve within the legal framework is absolutely sometimes a puzzle, because when you shift one piece here, you might be shifting something else there, and now you have to make another adjustment to make it all work, and still keeping in mind the most important objective of your clients. So,
Yeah, that's a lot of factors that you put into one solution. So that's something hard. So working with, and fun, definitely. So working with these companies like Sun Microsystems, Apple, Tesla, and Lucid, and now obviously Oceanside Perspective, you've been at the forefront of a lot of emerging technologies, and there's a lot nowadays modernly. What is some of the most significant changes that you've witnessed in the tech industry over your career, over time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one common theme throughout all of this is change, just constant change. And so I think one of the things I've enjoyed is really getting to think about what is going on right now, what are the assumptions that are working right now, but keeping in mind those can change. And so as you're coming up with solutions for your clients, recognizing what your assumptions are. As an example, when I worked at Sun Microsystems, we had software technologies that were intended to be used in different kinds of devices and size of devices. And our business models around each of those were assuming that our software could be used only in sort of a given set of devices. But as compute technology became more powerful, what we thought would fit in a large computer now could fit in a tiny little device. And so our assumptions around how our business model was going to be run and who was going to be using our software had to change. We had to be able to be nimble enough to adjust for that. And I think, there are other examples as well. As time has moved on, things that were sort of a given are no longer a given. The internet has grown to a point where it's the means of communication for people around the world and for transmitting, information that runs businesses, and is also therefore kind of the lifeblood of economies in a way. And because of that, there are also bad actors that recognize this is a great opportunity for them to get, a piece of the action. And so threats that exist now in terms of security didn't exist at the beginning of the use of the internet. And so as people design products, as people design business models, they have to recognize that those assumptions that they didn't have to worry about before now are important parts of their design process.
It's all about adaptability.
Absolutely.
Adapting to this new era.
That's right. Right.
And speaking of which, at Oceanside Perspective, we mentioned a lot about new technology, especially the use of artificial intelligence. And touching upon light beyond generations, we're obviously from two very different generations as well. And as a student right now and as Gen Z, and I'm going through the process of trying to become an aspiring businesswoman, I am growing increasingly concerned, as everybody is, about the upcoming use of technology in a bad way or the use of artificial intelligence. And can you kind of give me the some of your thoughts on the current state of innovation and the role of legal professionals in fostering it, specifically artificial intelligence?
Wow, that's a mouthful. There are...
I know.
Great question. Well, I think the state of innovation is we're kind of in a new... I don't want to call it renaissance because that makes it sound like it's very antiquated, but really things are going to evolve exponentially now because of the technologies that we have.
Definitely.
We think a lot about AI, and that is going to affect every area of learning, every area of invention and inventorship. So I think it's going to really revolutionize the way we do everything, really, even the way we interact. And so I think as institutions and as human beings, we're used to having a certain way of thinking about things, a certain framework and set of assumptions, and those are going to be rapidly changing. And I think the challenge will be for, people as humanity, as society, to be constantly checking in with those assumptions and adjusting policies, practices to account for those changes.
Right.
Don't assume too much. Be aware of what you're assuming and constantly asking, are those things changing?
Right.
So I think, there's tremendous potential for innovation in even the life sciences that have happened independently, but now will be augmented by artificial intelligence. And the role of a lawyer, I think, is to help people understand and to figure out really how existing legal frameworks will, intersect with what people are doing in terms of technology.
Yeah.
And to continue just to foster that and support that. And to figure out how it's going to work, because a lot of times, laws typically follow what's happening in the real world,
Right.
and often don't anticipate new technologies. And that is some of the interesting work that I find myself doing, is how do you figure out current rules that we're not contemplating existing technology, now current technologies and business models. So
Yeah.
there'll be a lot of challenge ahead.
I'm sure. I know we just got to learn to expect it and accept it as well. Yeah, at Oceanside Perspective, we talk a lot about actually artificial intelligence involving in the professional fields, in the healthcare fields even, and in all occupations. So I like when you said the intersection between like technology and our current jobs. That's really important to take note, especially as we go into this new generation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. In your current role, you navigate complex global operations as well, not only domestic. How do you balance the need for efficiency and resilience with compliance and maybe even sustainability in supply chain?
Yeah, another great question. That's one of the things that I really enjoy about the role that I have now is thinking locally and globally. You cannot have a solution that's specific to every single locale where you have customers. And yet you have to be respectful of the regulatory requirements, of the customs, of the people there. And so it does take some work to figure out, how can I find a common thread that is compliant with a number of countries' regulations, and still keeping in mind my client's objectives and business model. That's not going to cost so much money that it becomes a non-starter. So it is a challenge, but I think in terms of sustainability, there is increasing awareness and desire for companies to be more sustainable in their practices. And so that helps, because a company may want to do more sustainable practices, but they also have to answer to their shareholders, and maintain their profitability. When everybody is trying to achieve similar considerations to support sustainability, that kind of levels the playing field and allows you to justify resourcing in a way that does support more sustainable decisions and practices. So I think that's been helpful as more countries are taking into account sustainability in their regulations, and shareholders globally are asking for that. It makes it easier for us to do the right things.
Yeah, and it's not even a case-by-case thing. You have to take into account all of the cases for one solution. And I know a lot of the issues right now all around the world, especially with the younger generations, we like to focus on sustainability. And that's something that's very prominent in today's society, is like sustainable fashion as well, because you mentioned fashion before. So I love how you mentioned how being in compliance with all of these different regulations. That's hard. That's a challenge, definitely.
Absolutely.
I know your job involves a lot of brain power. Yeah, and so as our legal advisor as well, what is your role kind of in OP and helping our organization build a good future, keeping compliance and sustainability in mind, with kind of a mention to like leadership and innovation, especially resilience?
Wow. Well, I think that Oceanside Perspective has a wonderful mission of really encouraging leadership and innovation in a very thoughtful and sustainable way. And I love thinking about those things in terms of legal compliance and just keeping the guardrails on, but really allowing and supporting what you're trying to achieve. For the community, because I think there is a lot of interest in this area and so much potential. So I think that, yes, my job is just to keep you out of trouble and to protect what you're doing, really, so that it can build on itself and be valuable and useful to everybody who's interested in learning more. So
We're glad to be under your protection then. So what advice would you give to young professionals, especially women, aspiring to build careers in technology?
Yeah. Well, there's, I'd say two things. One is remain curious, keep learning, keep following what's interesting to you. My particular career path would not have been predictable by anybody, but what really has helped me do really interesting things is continuing to be curious about what I am doing, what I really want to do more of, and just figuring out the next step. I don't think you have to know what the end goal will be, what your ultimate role will be, because that may change over time. But just following the next step and being ready to be uncomfortable. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, particularly as a woman. You may not have seen many women in the role that you're seeking, and so be okay with that. Don't take that as a message that I don't belong here or I shouldn't be here because it doesn't feel familiar. Be ready to be a little bit uncomfortable and seek out mentors and supporters who can help you kind of work through that and recognize when that might be getting in the way and help you kind of just charge through those barriers.
Stay on your feet.
You
heard it from Julie Matsumoto. Stay curious. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Julie, and for this insightful conversation, and especially for your advice to our audience. We heard a lot of great stories from you today and a lot of good pieces to keep in mind as we go throughout our careers and life in general. So thank you for joining us at Oceanside Perspective to welcome aboard our new senior legal advisor, Julie Matsumoto, and for your continued support. And here we are today with the Oceanside Perspective founder and CEO, Helen Wang. Besides tuning in, how else can we help support Oceanside Perspective?
We are actually, as a nonprofit startup, and the resources are always very limited. So I think there are really a few things that, you could help us. But I would say maybe three things. The first thing is really subscribe. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're on LinkedIn, please follow us. Secondly is, if you love us, I'm sure the people surrounded you would like us as well. So please share. Please tell more people about what we do, the mission we're trying to achieve across generation again. So everybody is included. This is a very inclusive community. So please share and tell other people about Oceanside Perspective. The third thing, I think, come back to resources. I would really appreciate if you to consider that to donate to our cause for a great mission and for more content that we're going to create and benefit our community.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.